Time for some more first impressions. This time around, 2 from Lattafa, 1 from Paris Corner and 1 from Arabiat Prestige. Hello friends, I'm George, the nice smelling gentleman. Welcome back to the channel guys, I hope that all of you are doing well. It's time for your daily dose of some fragrance content and it's time for another first impressions video. Today, as I said, I have a few fragrances lined up, 2 from Lattafa, 1 from Paris Corner and 1 from Arabiat Prestige. And actually I'm going to start with the 1 from Arabiat Prestige. The fragrance itself is called Portrait and I think it's pretty much a whole line of fragrances. I've already reviewed another fragrance from the very same line which is called Portrait Oud. That one is inspired by Alexandria 2 from Zerzhov. It doesn't feel like a straight up clone, it's a nice interesting inspiration of Alexandria 2. And now it's time to talk about the one that's simply called Portrait. Now as I said, I think this is a whole line of fragrances there, at least a few more which I'll probably get at some point in the near future, but today I'm going to talk about the OG Portrait. Package and bottle wise it's very similar to Portrait Oud, but has a different color combination. The whole packaging is actually really nice, but at this point of time I expect that from Arabiat Prestige. They seem to be offering a superb quality. Bottle size here is 80 milliliters and the concentration is EDP. And I'm going to keep exploring some of those Arabiat Prestige fragrances again because so far from what I've tried they seem to be very impressive. Now Portrait, let me show you quickly the sprayer in action. A nice sprayer. Portrait itself is a clone of none other than Kilian's Angel Share. So we're talking about yet another Angel Share clone. I've lost counted how many clones of Angel Share we have currently, but there are quite a few. It seems to be a very popular fragrance to clone. And Portrait from Arabiat Prestige actually is a very good, very high quality clone of Angel Share. Opens up very similar to the original fragrance with all the sweet notes and the nice dose of cognac booziness. Very similar, but this one just seems a little bit more spicy than Angel Share itself. But other than that, actually feels very close and probably is one of those clones of Angel Share that actually gets the closest to the original fragrance in the opening. The other one that comes to mind that I have tried and own is a raw blend from Fragrance World and French Avenue. That's the other one that nails the opening just like Portrait does. Although raw blend seems to be slightly closer to the original fragrance. Portrait from Arabiat Prestige, it has a strong cognac note, but it just feels a little bit less strong compared to what you get from the original and raw blend. And also feels a little bit more spicy, but other than that you get the cinnamon spiciness, you get the vanillic and ambery sweetness, the date sweetness, you get this sort of a citrusy or like a mandarin undertone, maybe a hint of an apple note. All around seems very good clone of Angel Share. And probably it's one of the best clones. At some point in time I have to do the the fragrance battle between all the Angel Share clones that I have. I did that kind of a video a while back, but nowadays I have so many clones of Angel Share that I need to redo that video. Now I cannot talk much about performance because I opened up this one earlier today. It got delivered earlier today, literally, along with another fragrance that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But smelling it off a tester strip, it definitely seems to have a very good performance. So Arabiat Prestige's Portrait is an Angel Share clone that seems to have super high quality. The next one that I'm going to talk about briefly will be Quatre from the Nordstock line and Paris Corner. Now this fragrance is heavily inspired by Louis Vuitton's Afternoon Swim. It doesn't feel like a straight up clone, feels more like a little bit of inspiration, like a little bit of a twist, but definitely smells close to the original fragrance. If you're not familiar with the original fragrance, maybe you're familiar with something like Dior Homme Sport, for example. Now this doesn't smell very similar to Dior Homme Sport, but definitely carries very similar vibes, but it substitutes a few of the notes of from Dior Homme Sport. Dior Homme Sport is more citrusy, it's slightly sharper. This one has more sweetness. It has orange, a mandarin note, which add a bit more sweetness compared to Dior Homme Sport, but definitely feels in that very same category of fragrances. Again, I'm going to show you the sprayer in action. The sprayer here is very nice, feels kind of pressurized and has very good distribution. And the scent itself is very citrusy, it's very fresh, has a bit of a ginger note in here, maybe a hint of some spiciness as well, and also kind of a musky dry down. Maybe a hint of some oats as well, but it's more on the light side, more on the fruity, on the citrusy side. And smells very, very nice and very classy, and I actually was very pleasantly surprised by Quatre from Paris Corner. I briefly talked about this fragrance last week. I included it in a in a list video where I listed some classy smelling Middle Eastern fragrances, and Quatre from Paris Corner definitely smells very, very classy. It's a very pleasant, very easy to wear fragrance that's super versatile, very masculine, and pretty much works all year round, although I think this one will probably work the best in the warmer months of the year, but definitely this can be worn pretty much all year round. And it smells absolutely fantastic. Now, performance wise, I've given it only one wear so far, and it's a decent performer as you would expect from something fresh and citrusy based. This gives me about 6.5 to 7 hours of performance, which for me is more than enough, considering that this is an affordable fragrance that smells very pleasant and it's super easy to wear. So that's Quatre from Paris Corner and Nordstag line. And now moving on to the two Lattafas, and I'm going to start with the one that's called Adjoat Pink to Pink. Now this is nothing new to the markets, but I just recently added this fragrance to my collection. It was at some point last week. Now this fragrance is a sort of a clone again with a twist of Oud Maracuja from Maison Crivelli. And that's the reason why I got this one. I didn't get it earlier because this was supposedly very feminine smelling, and it does have a bit of a feminine edge. But lately I've been craving for, Oud Maracuja clones, and that's why I got Adjoat Pink to Pink as well. Again, I'm going to show you the sprayer. It's a good sprayer, has very good distribution. And the scent itself is, it's a clone of Oud Maracuja, but with a very heavy twist. It opens up very, very fruity. There's a guava note that's very strong. You get some citruses, you get a lychee note, a hint of sort of a pepperness in here. You also get a rose with this fragrance. There's an agar oud note, and there's a hint of leather as well. That's what you get out of Adjoat Pink to Pink. It's like a more fruity take on the Oud Maracuja, DNA, on the Oud Maracuja scent itself. It's not super close to the original thanks to this very sweet, very fruity opening that feels almost bubblegummy in the first few seconds. On the dry down, this actually gets closer to, to Oud Maracuja, but still lacks a bit of the strength of the leather note compared to the original fragrance. Maybe lacks a bit of the strength of the rose note compared to the original fragrance. It also lacks a bit of the strength of the agar oud note, but definitely smells very, very similar to, not very, but smells somewhat similar to Oud Maracuja. Performance-wise, this is an interesting topic because if you look up this fragrance from Fragrantica, you'll see that some people report this to be a very strong, beastly performing scent. Others report that this is more on the average side. And again, I've given it only one wear so far, and on skin this actually didn't last as long as I expected it to last. I got about 7.5 hours on skin, which is not what I expect out of this scent profile. I have another clone from French Avenue, which is called Azure Oud, which definitely smells closer to the original fragrance, but definitely also performs way better compared to Adjoat Pink to Pink, especially when it comes to, performance on skin. The French Avenue scent is giving me easily 10 hours and over 10 hours of performance, whereas Adjoat, again, it's around about the 7 to 7.5 hour mark. But one area where this actually excels is when, the longevity on clothes. On clothes, this actually will stay for over 24 hours, no problem. And I've had similar experience with some other fragrances in the past that don't last that much on skin, but actually last for a very good time on clothes. And Adjoat Pink to Pink is actually one of those scents. So far, I dig it quite a lot. Again, I like the original scent a lot, and this is like a feminine take on the original scent. Adjoat Pink to Pink from Lattafa. And now let's talk about the last fragrance featured today from Lattafa again, which is called His Confession. Probably one of those fragrances that will become hyped beasts in the next few months, because this already has started to get quite a lot of attention, and I just had to try it. The scent itself is supposedly a clone of Black Tie from Celine. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never tried the original fragrance, so I won't be talking about how close this is to the original, but a few other fragrances that this has been connected to are Givenchy Gentleman EDP, you know, Dior Homme Intense, and yeah, this definitely smells similar to especially Givenchy Gentleman EDP. This is the sprayer in action. It's a good sprayer with very good distribution. The bottle itself has a very, very interesting design, and I know some people will get this fragrance just for the sake of the look of the bottle so that they can add it to their collections. For me, the bottle design is not that important, the scent is more important. And this fragrance opens up very powdery, very sweet right from the get-go, but also has a bit of, you know, a bit of spiciness in the opening. There's a cinnamon note in here, there's a bit of lavender, which adds a bit of an aromatic feel to the scent itself. Maybe a hint of some citrusy freshness in the opening, something like a mandarin note. And you also get quite a bit of vanillic sweetness, and you get some of that iris powderness. It opens up a very, very nice, very sort of an easy to wear fragrance that feels very airy, doesn't feel very strong, doesn't feel overwhelmingly sweet or anything like that. Smells quite classy in the opening. And then on the dry down, I've had this for a few hours. I opened it up earlier today, but I can talk about the early dry down. On the dry down, this still remains quite powdery. It gets a little bit sweeter because the vanillic note is a little bit stronger on the dry down. There's maybe a hint of tonka bean, maybe a hint of some oud somewhere in the background, and I at least personally pick up just a tiny hint of leather note and a tiny hint of a tobacco note. Now the leather and the tobacco notes are not very strong, but I definitely pick something like that, at least from my first impressions. All around, a fragrance that's again very similar to Givenchy Gentleman EDP. Smells very similarly sweet and powdery, but this just lacks a bit of the strength of Givenchy Gentleman EDP. For me, the original from Givenchy has always been a pretty beastly performer, and I'm really curious to see how His Confession will perform. But so far seems to be more on the weaker side, maybe more on the average side when it comes to performance. But I'll keep testing this one just to see how it evolves with time. But it's definitely a very, very interesting scent, and people who enjoy fragrances like Dior Homme Intense, like Givenchy Gentleman EDP, will probably end up liking a lot His Confession from Lattafa. So guys, in today's video I shared with you my initial impressions on 4 brand new scents for my collection. 2 of them from Lattafa, 1 from Paris Corner and 1 from Arabiat Prestige. And to be honest, all 4 seems to be very, very nice scents. I hope that you found this video interesting to watch or entertaining. If you did, give it a like. And I also hope that you're going to join me tomorrow for your daily dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.